Legends of Tomorrow Season 2, Episode 9, Raiders of the Lost Ark. Really enjoyed this episode. I thought it was actually kind of funny the way they played around with pretty much everything. I mean, we find Rip Hunter. Initially, it's like, okay, why is Rip a movie director in the 1960s or 1970s? And it just wasn't what I was expecting. Like, I thought it was going to be, okay, sure, he's in the past, he's acting like this other person, and he's making this story, which I thought was weird. I think I mentioned that in the mid-season finale. Like, it was kind of weird that he'd be making a story of his own life, but at the same time, he can make a movie and it won't, like, destroy all of time. And I think that was, like, my excuse for it. I was like, yeah, that works, because he can make a movie and it won't be that big of a deal. Like, it's not gonna have a crazy effect like that. So then we get to the episode and the team ends up finding him and everything. And I thought, he's gonna see them and it's like, okay, now we get back to the team is with Rip and they go and go through the motions and everything, and then it's like, nope, he actually doesn't remember them, and he has, they mention like his actual structure, his physical structure has changed somewhat, and it's very interesting. And they don't really talk about it in this episode, and I guess it's impossible, but him messing with the time drive and holding the Spear of Destiny, I was wondering if that is how that actually happened, because him just touching the time drive, I wouldn't think that should have any sort of effect on him physically. Like, you just wouldn't expect that. It's like, okay, well, you touched it and it blows up. Sure, it might wipe his memories or something like that. That I can understand. But to, like, physically change him, which could, they could do it that way, where it's like a psychological thing where because he believes that he's not Rip so much, he, physically changes on the inside. That's, like, a popular theory just in real life. So I don't know how they're going to play around with that idea, but it was very interesting going through it, and he ends up, being with the team for the most part, and then it gets to the end, and I thought, that he really was himself again at the end as well, because I'm like, okay, Gideon did something, and it was reminding him, Gideon was reminding him, like, this is who you were, and stuff like that, and then maybe something happened that was able to, kind of help him out and trigger his memories again. And so he shows up. He's doing the accent and everything. He does a great American accent. I do believe the actor is actually British. Now, I don't really know. But either way, he was doing a good accent, whichever one he is. I'm assuming he's actually British. It's very rare to see people who aren't British do good British accents. But, he comes back at the end, and then, like, he lifts the gun up, and it just clicks. And it's like, oh, I guess it's not actually Rip. So unfortunately, he ends up being kidnapped by Reverse Flash, who was doing something this whole episode, apparently. Like, he shows up at the very end, and they're like, thanks for finally showing up. He's like, yep, always busy, but never late. And, like, I don't know. I feel like they could have done a lot more if he was there the whole episode. But, he comes in at the end. They have the little battle. He ends up, of course, kidnapping Rip. And so now the three of them, which they are officially calling them the Legion of Doom, which I love that they did that in this episode. And it was a very meta way to do it. Because Nate is like, he calls them Legion of Doom. They're like, what? He's like, yeah, it's a Hanna-Barbera cartoon, but it was still, obviously based off of the DC universe, the Legion of Doom. So I love that. I was like, that's kind of awesome that it was, a really meta reference and a way to, like, bring in the Legion of Doom title. It was still like, yeah, we made the Legion of Doom, so we're now using the Legion of Doom. So I was like, that's a cool, silly little reference to do. Like, yeah, it was just a Hanna-Barbera cartoon I used to watch, which is definitely about the universe that they live in. So I thought that was pretty funny that they actually did it that way. But it was really cool, so they used the Legion of Doom. Way less people, not much of a legion when it's just 3 people, but, they do what they can. So we have the Legion of Doom coming in, so I was actually happy that, now that they have, like, the official title and everything, I was really excited to see that Merlin is going to be a part of the series, because I was worried about that when he first came in. I was like, I hope he's not just here as, like, a special guest villain or anything like that. Like, I hope he really is a part of the series now. So I was really happy to see that he was, and it's like, it is actually a trio now, so it's, we do have Damien Dark, we have Eobard Thawne as Reverse Flash, which is still super awesome, seeing him run around with the Red Lightning is sweet. And now we have Malcolm Merlyn, who is officially a part of it as well. So I do love that it's a trio. All of them are deadly in their own right. Damien Dark and Malcolm Merlyn were with the League of Assassins, so they have insane fighting skills. Obviously, Reverse Flash, he moves at super speed, so that's bad in a lot of different ways. But I was happy to see that, like I said, Malcolm Merlyn was still with the team, or with the villain team. So he is a staple, which I don't know how that's going to play out based on the promo where they end up fighting each other and he's getting choked out by Eobard Thawne, who got pissed off at him or something. But they team up in this episode to try to get to Rip so that they can get to the spear and fuse it with whatever the other thing is. Not a medallion, but I guess the amulet. So they go through this whole crazy sequence of things where it's like, all right, we have to find Rip. He ends up getting arrested. The team ends up going to save him, so now he's on the ship. And then they find out things are going wrong. Like, something's weird. Ray isn't a scientist anymore. He's going like, he doesn't know what, like time drives and time jumps and all this stuff, so he's feeling weird. And then they go to Nate, and he keeps saying, and it's like, something's up. And I thought it was going to affect more people. I thought it was just affecting them first. And then it's like, no, they were affected because, appropriately, George Lucas didn't make either Star Wars or Indiana Jones. And I thought that was so funny that, like, and that's real life. That is real life. Some movies do that for people where it's like that inspires you to do something in that way. So it was two great franchises from George Lucas, which, we have a young George Lucas. And I knew that was going to be in this episode. I saw that, I think it was like right after the mid-season finale. It was like in the news, like, oh, they're going to have like a young George Lucas in the show. So I was curious how that was going to play out. And I think they did a good job with it. It was just really silly. It was like they've done with other characters. They just had way more of a focus instead of like, randomly mentioning someone's kid is Bill Gates and, stuff like that. They actually had the character in there as a part of the episode. And he was an important part too, because he has like the actual Spirit of Destiny, and he just throws it away because he's about to quit film school. And it was cool. I actually liked the way that it played out because Ray didn't have his suit anymore because that was a part of like the aberration. And then of course Nate didn't have his abilities because Ray didn't end up making the suit. So it's one of those weird things because they did so much. Like it's time. Sometimes people just don't do it perfectly. We don't know time travel, how it really works, but even in their own explanation, I feel like they kind of messed up in this episode because it kind of doesn't make sense that Ray would not have the suit. Because if Nate didn't have his powers, I would assume Nate should like have it banished from existence because that's the only reason he lived in the first place. Because he was dying when Ray gave him the serum, so that saved his life. So weird stuff like that. It was like at the same time though, it was like they don't remember anything. They never did anything that they'd ever done, and it was really weird because just the way it all played out was like they're affected by time, but not in the way that they should have been. Where, of course, if they never did any of the stuff they did, they also wouldn't have been on the ship ever either, so they kind of should have just disappeared. So there's a lot of weird things with that, where it's like, oh, I never, ended up making the Atom suit, which means I never would have been picked anyway because I wasn't a superhero to begin with. That sort of thing is why time travel is really weird in TV shows. And sometimes you notice things that just, you gotta stick with one theory for time travel. It just didn't work in this episode, but I didn't care that much. It made for some funny sequences, like when they were trying to use their powers. And then, I think it was Malcolm where it's like, I will shoot one of you. And Nate was like, yeah, he was talking. Or I think Ray said that. Or no, it was Nate. Nate was like, yeah, he was talking and stuff. And then they put their hands up. And I thought that was a funny sequence. And, of course, they go through. So we have Nate being captured. Ray's being captured. Amara's been captured. And George Lucas has been captured by Malcolm and Dark. And so, of course, it's like, alright, well, we need to go to the city dump so that we can find the Spirit of Destiny. And what they do, for anyone who doesn't watch Star Wars, I guess you wouldn't have got this reference, but what they did was they pushed them all into this trash compactor. And that was the scene out of the first Star Wars movie where the characters get trapped in a trash compactor. And they say the exact lines, too. It's like, don't understand, like, find something to brace it with and stuff like that. And I was like, that's really funny, and it's supposed to, like, this was the real-life inspiration for George Lucas to make the trash compactor scene in the first Star Wars film. So I thought that was really funny, and I just liked the way that played out. It was just really silly. It's like, oh, they're trapped in the trash compactor and everything like that, and then they have to convince George Lucas, like, hey, all you have to do is truly believe that you want to make this film, because if you do that, I will have my powers, he'll have his suit, and we can literally save your life. Like, you have to basically think it into existence to reset our lives the way that they were, and then we can save all our lives. We can get the heck out of here. Excuse me. And I thought that was a funny cycle, but I thought it was also kind of cool. It's like, if he didn't believe, they were screwed. And all he had to do was believe that it was true and believe what he wanted to do. And then boom, Nate had his powers back. He was able to, hold off the thing. Ray was able to fly out, and everybody gets out of there, and they just beat the crap out of Merlin and Dark until Eobard Thawne showed up. So very cool sequence. Mara got a necklace back, which I thought was cool. I thought that was a pretty cool sequence. And then when she does the gorilla thing and she grabs Malcolm and he's like, oh, and she just tosses him like across the field. I thought that was really funny. But I liked it. I thought it was a cool little action sequence. And then sadly, it kind of falls apart and Rip ends up being kidnapped. And I can't wait to see how this is going to play out. I think it should be really fun to watch them go through trying to save Rip. And like I said, the Legion of Doom is now like they're fighting against each other and stuff like that, which typical villain stuff. So I'm excited for what they're doing with it. We had also like a little side story with Mick where we find out that his hallucinations of Snart should have been from a device, but the device was actually malfunctioning. So he's kind of going crazy a little bit, but in a sense, not really. I don't know if it's like residual stuff, perhaps, but they kind of mentioned like the device was actually malfunctioning for quite some time. So I don't know. It's hard to say exactly what that means and what they're going to be doing with Snart's return, where it's like him bonding with time basically and stuff like that. So there's some elements there where they can be like, okay, he's a time ghost, but if he's a time ghost, then he's really there in some regard. And there's a way that they can do that. Whether the device is malfunctioning or not, the fact that it could possibly work still means that in some way he's around. So there's some tricky stuff that I think they can do with that to actually bring Snart back. But thought it was a cool episode. Loved the George Lucas stuff. Obviously I love Star Wars. But it was a fun episode. I am very excited to see where they go with the second half of this season and what they're going to be doing with Rip, how he's going to get his powers back, if he has to use the Spear of Destiny to redo everything for himself, and he does actually have, he basically redoes his memories and everything. But I'm excited for it. I'm curious to see what they're going to do, because I'm sure the heroes are going to get it. So it makes me wonder if they're going to save, I can't even remember the guy's name, but the guy that Thawne killed early on in the season that caused Amara to get on the ship, he killed him in the past, but, and I mentioned in that episode, he showed up to them in the present, and then he vanished out of nowhere. So I think they might have to rewrite that history or something like that. I don't know. It's really hard to say how that's going to play out, but I did enjoy this episode. Of course, would love to know what you guys thought about it, so please comment below. Let me know your favorite parts, least favorite parts, and I want to know how you guys think they're going to end up getting Rip back to his old form. Like, are they going to use the Spear of Destiny? Because at this point, I feel like them just putting everything together and rewriting his reality, I feel like that's how it's going to work. And it's just, because like they mentioned, like it'll just be set. That's what it'll be. There's nothing that can change it. They could also save his wife and child, which I don't know if they'll go that far with it, but I feel like they might just bring him back and it won't just be like, oh, he regained his memories. I feel like they'll have to use the device to rewrite the reality and be like, okay, you're fixed. Or however it's going to look, it'll probably look better than that. But I feel like that's how it's going to work, and that's how they'll save him. Is it'll be like the end of the season, they get the device together, and then they fix him by actually changing his reality. And then, of course, they destroy the device and shatter it across time. But that's my theory. Would love to know yours. And like I said, I, of course, want to know what you guys thought about the episode in general. So please comment below, let me know, and thanks for watching.